Lesson 8.1, applying exponent properties involving products. There's actually a great deal in this lesson, so take careful notes and make sure you understand what you're doing. So what is x squared times x to the fifth equal? Well, that's x to the seventh. We add the exponents. When we're multiplying, we add exponents. When we are dividing, when we are adding to like terms, we add the coefficients. I'm not going to ask you to do much adding of coefficients until Chapter 9, Unit 9. But for now, you should know the difference. Now, the question is, how do you remember that? And if I haven't taught this in a while, I actually do forget. So what I have to do is when I see x squared times x to the fifth, I have to break it down. Well, x squared is x times x. And x to the fifth is x times x times x times x times x. There's 7 x's. That's going to equal x to the seventh. Once I remember that, the rest of the rules actually usually stick with me pretty readily, but I often have to go through that just to make sure. So some practice, and it's pretty easy stuff once you know the rules. 7 to the 8th. Always write in your 1, or else you will forget it. I wrote them in for all three. 6 and 2 is 8, and 1 is 9, so it's 9 to the 9th. And notice it says, write your final answer in exponents, because we could multiply some of these out with the calculator, but there's no need to at this time. This is -5, and we just leave it inside the parentheses. We don't have to mess with the negative yet. To the 7th. This is x to the 7th. Now, nothing's happening to the 2 and the 3. They're not to a certain power, so just multiply them together. I get 6, and then 5 plus -3 is 2, so y squared. And this one, -x to the 5th. Now, that's rule number 1, the how to multiply exponents. Now, what if I take an exponent to a power? Well, now we're going to multiply, not add like we just did. So 3 times 2 is 6. That'll be x to the 6th. How do I remember that one? Same thing. 4 squared is like 4 times 4. So x to the 3rd squared is like x to the 3rd times x to the 3rd. 6 of them, x to the 6th. I don't usually have to go through that. Once I've remembered the first rule, I can remember the second rule, but you do have to remember them. So practice, just multiply. 2 to the -15th. We usually don't write things as negative exponents, but that'll be next lesson. Keep the y plus 2 the same. 6 times 2 is 12. Be careful, I nearly said to the 8th there. It's easy to get it rolling off the tongue. And then -6, 2 times 5 is 10. And finally, for this side, how do we rewrite xy quantity to the 3rd? Well, we distribute the 3rd. So this is actually x to the 1st, y to the 1st to the 3rd. 3 times 1 is x to the 3rd. 3 times 1 is y to the 3rd. So we just distribute exponents when we're taking a group of them to a power. So just to be clear, and I say just remember this one, there's no way to remember that I know of off the top of my head. Let's practice. 24 to the 8th times 13 to the 8th. And again, we're not going to multiply them out on the calculator unless explicitly told to do so. Now we got actually 3 components here. We got the 4, the z, and the -1. So -1 to the 3rd, 4 to the 3rd, z to the 3rd. -1 times -1 times -1 is negative, so I'm going to pull it out. And that's the only one we will multiply out, is the negative whenever we can. -4 to the 3rd, z to the 3rd. And this one would just be 3 to the -2, y to the -2. And again, we don't ever really want to write negative exponents. I'll show you how to fix that shortly. Next lesson. So that was all multiplying. How about dividing? Well, multiplying was addition, so dividing is subtraction. X to the 7th over x squared is 7 minus 2 is 5. And the way I remember this, seven on top, 2 on the bottom. Well, we can cancel. Left with 5 on the top. X to the 5th. This one, 2 minus 7 is x to the -5th. Again, we'll show you how to do negative exponents properly later. So that's it. Practice. 10 minus 4 is 6. 8 to the 6th. 4 minus 7 is negative 3. Negative 3 to negative third. Now this one looks like they're separate, but you can rewrite them. Multiply the top, multiply the bottom. 6 minus 3 is 3, x to the third. And we just did this. We did xy to the third, and then we distributed and got x to the third, y to the third. Well, we can do the same thing over here, even though one's on the top of the fraction, one's on the bottom. So 3 to the 7th over 2 to the 7th. If I were to tell you to multiply it out, you'd have to do this with your calculator. But we don't have to at this time, so this is actually the answer we're looking for. So, practice. Now notice I say multiply out. So here we're going to actually multiply them out. There's nothing to multiply out here, so we just put the 3 on both of them. Finally, we have something to multiply out. X to the third, 2 to the third, y to the third. Well, that's x to the third over 8, y to the third. Here, 2 to the third is 8. S to the third is just s to the third. 3 to the third is 3 times 3 is 9. Times 3 is 27. 27 t to the third. And now what we'll do is, of course, we'll throw all these together and make them much more complicated. Don't be afraid to write out 10 million steps. So 2 to the fourth, x to the fourth, 3 to the fourth, y to the fourth, 5 squared, x squared, y squared. Let's put the numbers out there. 2 times 2 is 4 is 16. And let's combine the x's. Let's finish the numbers. Times 5 squared is 25. And I don't multiply them together yet, even though I could. I'll show you why in a minute. X to the fourth times x to the second is x to the sixth. Multiplying, we add. 3 to the fourth is 9 times 9 is 81. Y to the fourth times y to the second is y to the sixth. Now look to see if I can cancel. Well, these only have 4s and 5s and 2s that go in. This only has 3s, so no canceling. So 16 times 25, I believe, is 400. X to the sixth over 81, y to the sixth. And notice we don't have to write the numbers separate or anything like that. We just slap them together and everything works out. Now again, there was a lot to this lesson, so make sure you're ready to practice. Keep the notes handy. Refer back to them when you have to. Good luck.